Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? Today is Tuesday, January 16th, 2024. Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. Louisiana's new proposed congressional map will create a second majority black district. The NAACP Legal Defense Fund is declaring victory. Yet Republican Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, who is from Louisiana, is doing all he can to stop black people from having another district. Our economy is booming, but some folks aren't really excited about the growth. We'll break down why Wall Street isn't feeling this great economy. Donald Trump was the winner of the Iowa Caucus, but one of the most talked about things from last night's vote was how the ballots were collected. In paper bags? Popcorn bowls? Really? Mom for Liberty failed to completely overtake South Carolina school boards, so they are creating a school, a charter school with tax dollars. A former California deputy will spend 30 days behind bars for killing an unarmed black man. And Nimarata Nikki Haley, she actually said America has never been racist. And then seconds later said, I faced racism as a kid. We'll walk through how she literally is one of the dumbest, most crass politicians in America. And also, my poor Dallas Cowboy fans, especially those who work for me, are really bummed because their team lost. I'm going to share some of my favorite memes and videos, especially for Henry Peterson, Deshaun Smith, and Antoine Downs. It's time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the biz, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
Black folks in Louisiana move one step closer to getting a second majority black congressional district. The proposed map, favored by Governor Jeff Landry, who's a Republican, will create a second majority black congressional district by taking in Shreveport and Alexandria and joining much of Baton Rouge to form a new 6th congressional district. Now, Republican Congressman Garrett Graves is at risk of being ousted from his position. Now, in November, a federal appeals court upheld federal judge Shelley Dick's earlier ruling requiring Louisiana's congressional map be redrawn to include a second majority black district. There are 6 in the state. Now, keep in mind, the federal judges ruled in early 2022 to create the district. Republicans then challenged that. The Supreme Court said, hold up, there's not enough time to redraw the districts. That actually was a lie. So then we went to 2023. And the Supreme Court, after they ruled in the Alabama case, said Louisiana has to create a new district because they violate the rights of African Americans as a result of the Voting Rights Act. Republicans then tried to pass new maps and ignored the Supreme Court. And they were like, nah, not gonna happen. Then they tried to go back to the very conservative 5th Circuit to try to get them to try to retry the case again. No, didn't happen. Now, when Landry was elected governor, he was like, listen, we got to deal with these new maps. So he called for a special session of the legislature. And the passage requires majority votes in the House and Senate. But guess who's not happy? That is Mike Johnson, who represents Louisiana's 4th district. Why is Mike not happy? Well, he's the Speaker of the House. He posted this on Twitter. We've just seen and are very concerned with the proposed congressional map presented in the Louisiana legislature. It remains my position that the existing map is constitutional and that the legal challenge to it should be tried on merits so the state has adequate opportunity to defend its merits. Should the state not prevail at trial, there are multiple other map options that are legally compliant. No, go back to the tweet, please. That are legally compliant and do not require the unnecessary surrender of a Republican seat in Congress. Now, that's what he cares about. Mike Johnson does not care about black voters in Louisiana. Mike Johnson does not care that multiple federal courts have ruled that Louisiana has violated the constitutional rights of African Americans. He is desperate to protect the Republican seat. Right now, they have a very narrow majority in the House. They want to control the House next year. And we have a black district in Alabama. Now you have a black district in Louisiana. You've got potential for districts in Georgia and Florida. So they're like, throw in what's going to happen in New York. They're like, we might be losing the House. But let me say it again. Republican Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, is saying to black people in Louisiana, I don't give a damn about you. I want white Republicans, and I do not want to see an African American, a second one from Louisiana. That's what he's saying. My panel, Dr. Mustafa Santiago Ali, former senior advisor for environmental justice with the EPA, joining us from D.C., Dr. Larry Walker, assistant professor, University of Central Florida, Johanna LeBlanc, partner with the Adomi Advisor Group, LOC. Glad to have all three of you here. What we're dealing with here, Mustafa, is obviously it's pure crass politics. Alabama Republicans tried it. They kept getting smacked down by the federal judges. They had to relent. Okay, fine, we got to do the district. Louisiana wants 20 bites at the apple. I mean, Johnson is saying, oh, let's go to trial. Dude, we've already been to trial multiple times. They've been to mediation. This thing went all the way to the Supreme Court. Suck it up, Mike. You lost.
Yeah, I mean, Mike Johnson doesn't care about the rule of law. He definitely doesn't care about, black folks, their vote being honored in this process. So he's very clear. This is a strategic move. Once again, they're trying to run out the clock so that they can continue to hold on to power. And that's really what this is about, is power and politics. And they'll do anything that they can do to be able to hold on to that power and to continue to manipulate the political system. So we just have to be very clear about what's happening in this moment. This is another reason why we continue to try and help people to understand why your vote is so incredibly important and why you have to show up, both on the state level and the federal level, county and local, and utilize to make sure that you are actually building, the infrastructure for black politics. And what I mean by that is that we're getting the individuals elected, and then we continue to expand out from there.
Larry, again, I think what is most basic and fundamental here, Mike Johnson is saying, I don't represent you black people in Louisiana. He's saying, oh, you Democrats in Louisiana, I don't represent you. I only represent Republicans, mainly white Republicans.
The message is quite clear from Congressman, Speaker Johnson. And, it's interesting, Roland, because this really highlights why the Voting Rights Act is so important and why it's been under attack for the last several years by Republicans. I think also them creating, this new, black congressional district, Louisiana, is important when it comes to also black political power. We have to acknowledge the Congressional Black Caucus has 60 members, and I'm a former CBC staffer. This is the highest they've ever had in terms of CBC members. So we have a chance in the next election to add to that number. This is about black political power. And also what we've seen in terms of the white response to President Obama, 2008, Vice President Harris, and this idea among white Republicans that they've lost America and it's not theirs anymore. So as the country has become more diverse, we continue to see this pushback on voting rights. And also, Roland, as you talked about a lot on your show, gerrymandering, right? So they've rigged the system, and when on some occasions they lose, they rightfully lose, then they want to complain about, the judicial system, in which, like I said, Brother Mustafa said, they're always reminding us about the rule of law. Well, you be in the rule of law, Speaker Johnson, and you represent, like as you said, Roland, as a speaker, you're representing, everyone in the House, and certainly as a congressman from the state of Louisiana, you also very aware of the issue of gerrymandering and racism in Louisiana that continues to this day. It also has one of the highest incarceration rates in the country and the world as it relates to black folks. So I think as Speaker Johnson, his statement is problematic and also highlights why Republicans don't want to. They're fighting every tooth and nail at all these black congressional districts throughout the South.
Johanna, Janae Nelson, who runs the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, she tweeted this out. She says, Speaker of the House Mike Johnson is attempting to block a bipartisan agreement to draw a fair map that doesn't discriminate against black voters in Louisiana. He's advocating for continued waste of taxpayer dollars to defend a map the Fifth Circuit said likely violates the Voting Rights Act. The thing that's crazy here is, again, you have a Republican governor who is conceding we lost. In fact, the same Republican governor was the Attorney General of Louisiana who was fighting the congressional district. So this man is going, look, we lost. We got to go ahead and create the district. Mike Johnson is like, no, let's just keep fighting. It's sort of like the game is over. The clock says 0, 0, 0, and you got, let's just run a few more plays. Say, dog, the clock is run out. Game over. You lost.
Well, Roland, as my co-panelist articulated, this is a ploy by the Republican Party, unfortunately, and in particular, Mr. Johnson, Speaker of the House, to ensure that there isn't additional representation within the Congressional Black Caucus. And similar to my co-panelist, I am a former senior CBC staffer, and there is a great need for additional representation, especially in today's climate where we are dealing with dire issues around environmental injustice, the housing crisis, and incarceration, and an economy that the administration.
All right, looks like we lost Johanna's signal there, so we'll try to get her back. Folks, this is real simple, and I've made these things perfectly clear numerous times. Republicans do not give a damn about black people. The courts have said that black voters are being disenfranchised in Louisiana. Black people make up 30+% of the state of Louisiana, and there is one African American in Congress, and that's Troy Carter, and that's the seat out of New Orleans. And so what they are saying is, we ain't get up to the second one. The exact same thing that white Republicans were saying in Alabama. And what the white Republicans in Alabama did and what the white Republicans in Louisiana did was the exact same thing that racist white Southern Democrats did in stopping black advancement during Jim Crow and the Black Freedom Movement. So yesterday's white Southern Dixiecrat is today's white Southern Republican. There is no difference. It is time for that second black congressional district, and that means more power for African Americans. Going to a break, we'll be right back. I'm Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. We're going to talk about Nikki Haley. She said America has never been racist. Which America are you talking about? South America? Not this one. We're going to break it down. Back in a moment.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
An angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol.
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Next, on the Black Table with me, Dr. Greg Carr, author Dr. Maribel Mori, on her astounding and enlightening new book, White Philanthropy, a history we're betting you've never heard before. Don't miss an eye-opening episode of the Black Table, only on Black Star Network.
What's up? It's Tammy Roman.
Hey, it's John Murray, the executive producer of the new Sherry Shepherd Talk Show.
It's me, Sherry Shepherd, and you know what you're watching, Roland Martin Unfiltered.
All right, folks, the orange man who has been indicted faces 91 counts in 4 different trials, won the Iowa Caucus. Ron DeSantis came in second. Nikki Haley came in third. I don't really give a damn. So here's what's interesting. So Republicans spend a lot of their time complaining about voting and voter fraud. Well, that's interesting because last night, a video that went viral shows people literally voting, writing on sheets of paper and just dropping them in paper bags. And then also they were using, there was another photo or video showing using popcorn bowls as a way to collect the ballots. That's interesting because these people, look at this, boy, that's a lot of voter protection right there. And just dropping names in paper bags, Larry. They love talking about protecting the integrity of the ballot. I mean, they said this is worse than the church passing around the plate doing collection. At least it's a nice plate.
I know, at least it's gold, right? And got that little velvet in the center where you pass that plate around in the black church, right? So, Roland, I want to call on the state attorney general to investigate this because what I see on video is clearly not consistent with, I'm assuming, voter laws in the state of Iowa. So, like I said, I would call for an complete investigation.
I mean, Larry, check this one out. They literally are pulling out ballots written on sheets of paper out of popcorn bowls.
This is the craziest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. And, you know, it's interesting because when I look around, I don't see any people look like me. So I guess it's not voter fraud. I guess that's how that works. But I would certainly, like I said, I'm assuming the state attorney general would get right on that in terms of the determining that. Because I didn't see any IDs or anyone reviewing any IDs or any other protocols in place to make sure we protect the integrity of our elections. So maybe perhaps the caucuses yesterday, based on what I'm seeing, are invalid. Maybe they should start from ground zero. I guess that's how that works.
And not only that, Johanna, what's interesting is I saw one tweet when you talk about, we can't have electioneering when it comes to, but people are voting. There was a woman last night who was a spokesman for the Trump folks in one of the caucuses who stood up and said that fool won 3 Nobel Peace Prizes. 3.
Well, Roland, I think there are some major concerns here for the Democratic Party if the Democratic wish to maintain the White House. The reality is that, first, this is the same president that said the 2020 election was stolen from him because there were, folks were able to vote from home because of the pandemic. And he indicated there were severe voting irregularities, right? And then you're watching what happened in Ohio, people literally voting, putting their votes in a basket, in paper bags.
No,
right?
no, wasn't Ohio, that was Iowa.
I'm sorry, Iowa, I'm sorry. Literally putting them in paper bags, right? So you have to ask yourself, where is the consistency? If we're going to be consistent about voting rights and preserving one's right to vote and making sure that the integrity of the process remains intact, we need to be consistent all across the board. But then again, this is the same administration, this is the same former president that we know who has not been consistent when it comes to some of these issues. So we should not be too surprised. But at the end of the day, he did win, and I think that it speaks volume to his base and his ability to articulate his stance, and that he has a strong base, the MAGA base, right? They're still willing to vote for him in spite of the numerous indictments. In fact, this morning he had to go to court after the winning the caucus, right? He had to go to court and appear on a sexual harassment case. That is the reality. So I think that the Democratic Party, this is an opportunity for them to realize that, again, this man has supporters, and they are energized, and they want him back in the White House. So for the Democratic Party, we need to have more inspiring candidates and people who are going to champion on behalf of the Democratic Party. And we want to hear stories. We want to hear more about what has the administration done, right? Because I know Biden administration has the Binomics, which I think one of the greatest achievements of President Biden is the bipartisan infrastructure bill. And the administration needs to leverage on that, because Bidenomics, the average American doesn't know what that is. We need to come strong, right? And talk about what has happened and how.
Well, of course. I mean, first of all, let's be perfectly clear. Okay, Iowa's last night. Democrats, Mustafa, vote South Carolina beginning February 3rd. The reality is we're now in election season. You see the Biden campaign staffing up. You've seen John Kerry lead the administration, go to the re-election campaign. Mitch Landrieu go to the re-election campaign as well. You've seen Quentin Fulks, deputy campaign manager, making the rounds on television. And so those things are happening. And so the reality is, as we move down this path, the reality is Donald Trump is likely going to be the nominee. And so it's going to be a stark choice between Biden and Trump. You also are seeing the economic numbers consistently showing how well the economy is doing. And so I think you're going to see that narrative being told over and over again, Mustafa.
Yeah, I mean, it is about economics. So the two things that folks out there in Iowa said were important to them were, one was immigration, the other one was economics. We know that the Biden administration has a strong record to stand in relationship to economics. But getting back also, Roland, to what you had asked earlier, we see that integrity, especially in relationship to voter integrity, only seems to be something that is necessary when it ends up being in black and brown locations. If we were passing around, whether it's a brown paper bag, and I think my brother Larry there was about to say that, if you're on the lighter side of that brown paper bag, then you get certain things that are, there's a certain amount of trust that is often given. And we've seen those dynamics play out before. So, in this moment, we understand the dynamics that are going on, that white folks are supposed to be trusted when it comes to voting, that they never have any voter irregularities, and that they are always living up to the integrity that is supposed to be a part of our democratic system. And often when we take a look at who actually has been in violation of voter laws, who's been in violation of voter integrity, it has actually been Republicans. It has actually been white brothers and sisters. So those are just the facts that are out there, even though we are the ones that often are put on the media if we make a mistake in that area.
Well, when it comes to your point, though, the reality is when you look at a lot of the cases, you're absolutely right. It has been GOP voter fraud. In fact, you had a man in Florida who was charged with voter fraud, and he tried to say, "Oh, it was." I'm blaming the DeSantis and the Trump folks. You had, of course, voter fraud in North Carolina. We've seen voter fraud in other states, and numerous times it was Republicans who were involved. Yet in Texas, they still 5 years later are trying to go after this sister who voted, and she wasn't aware that she could not vote, and she filed a provisional ballot, yet they still are trying to go after her. Folks at Project Lincoln dropped an interesting ad that I saw, and I was like, yo, man, that ad was absolutely fire. Check this out. I want to get your thoughts.
And on the 8th day, God looked down on his planned paradise and said, I need a man to test the will and goodness of a free people. So God made a dictator. God said, I need a man who failed in everything but theft and broken promises to live in a golden palace and convince the poor he serves their needs. So God made a dictator. God said, I need a wicked man to lead the common folk with hatred and fear. So God made a dictator. God said, I need a corrupt man who is above the law and immune from justice. So God made a dictator. God said, I need a man who will use violence to seize power. So God made a dictator. God said, I need a man whose followers will call black white, call evil good, and call criminals hostages. So God made a dictator. God said, I need his political party to obey without question, and the press fear his wrath. So God made a dictator. God said, I need a cruel man who uses his power and position to punish and harm his opposition. So God made a dictator. God said, I need a man who breaks the faith of even his most godly followers and leads them to idolatry. Place him above me. So God made a dictator. And then God said, I sent this man to test you, and until you cast him down, you have failed. So God made a dictator.
Mustafa, that's a damn good ad.
It is a very powerful ad, and it's all true. But, here the reality of the situation is that, the vast majority of folks who, support Donald Trump, no matter what he does, no matter what he says, is not going to make, any difference to them. That is an ad for those folks who label themselves as independents and say they haven't made a choice yet.
Right.
That is an ad also for those folks who say, I'm not sure why I should vote. Hopefully people will watch it and make an informed choice.
And here's the thing, you're right. And what people don't understand, we're talking about margins, Larry. We're talking about in some places where people kind of like, well, I'm not sure. The Republican Accountability Project, they dropped this ad.
It didn't matter how many laws and norms he broke. He thought it didn't matter how many lies he told the American people. And it seemed like he could get away with anything. And many of us even started saying,
Nothing matters.
Nothing matters.
Nothing matters.
Nothing matters.
Nothing matters.
Nothing matters anymore. You can flout the law.
but this wasn't true. Because in America, the rule of law still matters. And that's why Donald Trump has been charged with 91 felonies in 4 separate cases for attempting to steal an election, falsifying business records, and mishandling classified information. We've seen what happens when people start believing nothing matters. That's why it doesn't matter that Donald Trump was president of the United States. It doesn't matter that he is currently running for the presidency. This is America. No one is above the law. That's why it matters that Donald Trump faces consequences for his actions. When Donald Trump was president, he thought it didn't matter how many laws and norms he broke. He thought it didn't matter how many...
It's a great ad, Roland, but, it's interesting, in looking at these ads and obviously highlighting what we all know is, well, not all of us, some people don't believe it. All these, illegal challenges, it really, for me, highlights as a researcher why white supremacy is a problem in the United States. Because if you switch out Barack Obama with Donald Trump, we wouldn't be here. And I think ads like this are really important, particularly this year as we move closer to November. But it highlights for those, like you said, Roland, those individuals who are at the margins who said they're undecided, is you really comes down to this election November is a matter of whether we're continue to be a democracy, a struggling democracy at that, but we becomes a country that 2024 is our last actual election. And Donald Trump has made it very clear from day one he's going to be a dictator. And he's going to start trying to throw people out of the country. Obviously, the courts could obviously play an important role. But the bottom line is we have to be really clear about what's at stake in November, and that's our democracy. And both these ads highlight that. He's more than likely going to trial at least one or two of these particular cases, hopefully, and could likely be a felon. But in the meantime, we have to continue to make sure that we see more ads like that, and that the Biden-Harris administration continue to send their folks out on television, and they make sure they talk to black and brown people about why Bidenomics is important.
Johanna, there are some people, again, what they often see is they say, well, these things don't matter. They say, okay, fine, you're playing to the crowd on social media, and not everyone is on social media. But the goal is to also get these into the news cycle. The folks at Vote Vets have also done that, and here is something that they put together recently.
Make Mark Swalwell get this over with. It's time to do it. And see how brave the rest of them. You can follow either Swalwell or Nadler before the election. They need to get the message.
The Vote Vets logo come up at the end. It's ready to switch.
Stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody.
I asked you a yes or no question. Could a president who ordered SEAL Team 6 to assassinate a political rival who was not impeached, would he be subject to criminal prosecution?
If he were impeached and convicted first. And
so your answer is no.
Do you agree with your lawyers what they said on Tuesday, that you should not be prosecuted or could not be prosecuted if you ordered SEAL Team 6 to kill a political opponent?
Well, you're talking about a totally different case, the immunity. I say this, on immunity, very simple. If a president of the United States does not have immunity, he'll be totally ineffective because he won't be able to do anything, because it will mean he'll be prosecuted, strongly prosecuted.
What's crazy here, Johanna, is that what he had to say. But Vote Vets, the reason they're doing it, because they are targeting veterans.
You know, and I think that's a great call. And as my co-panelist Larry indicated, the reality is that regardless of the types of ads that are put out there regarding some of the atrocious acts committed, by the perceived atrocious acts committed by the former president, his base will always vote for him, and they will make excuses. So I think that those ads should be targeting other constituencies, like the veterans, right, who may not have a position yet, who may not know which way they're going to go. And also, I would call upon some of these organizations to also make sure those ads are shared through WhatsApp. And I think that the immigrant community, even those who are legalized and who are able to vote in this country, they rely heavily on WhatsApp for news, and news go very far. So start using some of these platforms beyond your original, your traditional channels, like Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and so on, so that the message could really get out in terms of who we're really dealing with and exactly what's at stake. And beyond, again, I don't mean to sound like a broken record, beyond the different indictments and what former President Trump has done, there has to be a plan on what the Democratic Party has done, what the Democratic Party continues to do, and we have to be able to inspire people to go out and vote. People want to be inspired, right? People want to feel that they're connected to the party before they go out and vote, because there's a lot at stake right now in 2024.
Folks, hold on 1 second. We come back. We're going to talk about this economy and again how folks are responding. and what needs to happen. Be sure to support us in what we do, folks, here. You can join our Bring the Funk fan club. And that is, of course, our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing on average $50 each, which comes out to $4.19 a month, 13 cents a day. You can send your check and money order to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037-0196. Cash App, $ RM Unfiltered, PayPal or Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered, Zelle. Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. When you get a copy of my book, you are supporting this show as well. And so you can get White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds, available at Ben Bella Books, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, IndieBound, Bookshop, Chapters, Books A Billion, Target. You can also get the audio version on Audible. Also, folks, be sure to download the Black Start Network app, where you can always get all of our content, and you can, of course, get your notifications on your Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. Back in a moment.
I'm Faraji Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
My name is Lena Charles, and I'm from Opelousas, Louisiana. Yes, that is Zydeco capital of the world.
My name is Margaret Chappelle. I'm from Dallas, Texas, representing the Urban Trivia Game.
It's me, Sherry Shepherd, and you know what you watch.
Roland Martin on Unfiltered.
The reality of our economy is that things are improving, but you always hear the whining and complaining, especially from folks on Wall Street. Stephanie Rule, the host of MSNBC's 11th Hour, explained Wall Street investors and why are they not excited about this economy under Biden.
That Wall Street Republican, if you actually look at Joe Biden policies, they should be stoked about it, right? I mean, we have a very strong economy given where we came from. Look at the infrastructure. Look at all that he's done. But why do they pull back? Because this idea that they have that he's super liberal, which he's not. And the reason they have this idea is because when they got into investment banking, when I did, Those investment banks only recruited from 4 colleges, and they were Ivy League universities, and they didn't have any DEI initiatives. And they loved to hire lacrosse players and football players and sons of people that went to really expensive boarding schools. And that is why that group of Wall Street people think that Joe Biden is super liberal, because their son named Chad in a Patagonia vest isn't automatically getting into Princeton and gets to be in Eddie's class. That's why they feel that way.
They could probably still get in, though. Like, probably.
Yeah, but I got it.
Yeah.
Seems like she nailed it, Larry.
She hit it right on the nose. All this angst about, DEI and affirmative action, all these other issues. It is, and then some folks say that white folks have economic anxiety. Look, the bottom line is that people, particularly white folks in this country, are struggling because they feel like even if a little bit of their grasp is coming loose off of economic, political, and social power in the United States, that they've absolutely lost their minds. And so I'm glad to see someone, beyond this panel, make the point, Roland, about what's really going on here again in the court. Maybe some more people who are white people will listen to what she had to say. But the bottom line is, first of all, like I said, historically, they hired some of the same people in the same boarding schools, the same, elite or top tier, top 10 schools. Those same individuals got internships they went skiing with, while ignoring the black person who went to a state school who was out hustling them all and had better grades. So, this argument of DEI and some of these other policies, and like I said, these Wall Street folks who live within their own little bubble and don't acknowledge other people with other lived experiences who are better at them at their job, they miss out. And then, like you said, this narrative continues because some of those people who write for some of these large newspapers went to the same schools.
What we are dealing with, John, it's real simple. I laid it out in here. I said these things are going to happen. What you're seeing are white folks who are like, oh my God, we're losing. I can't stand this. You've got Elon Musk whining and complaining about DEI on Twitter. They don't like the fact that white folks in America now have to compete.
Well, when you live in a country where historically you have not had to necessarily prove yourself, you can be mediocre and rise to the top. Now that you actually have to compete, it is problematic, right? You want the rules changed because the rules are now are no longer beneficial to you. And folks who are calling against DEI and affirmative action, let's be real. In America, the #1 recipient or beneficiary of affirmative action are white women. That's the reality, right? So when the rules change and no longer benefit a certain group that is considered to be the dominant group in this country, now we're seeing people calling for let's get rid of the rules and let's start over. But the reality is that back to the Bidenomics program that Mr. Biden has in place, and I think it's a great initiative. It has a number of pillars. One of them is helping to promote small businesses and keeping money in the pockets of small business owners, because what we saw is that after COVID, inflation went through the roof, and a lot of these challenges that we are experiencing economically are because of the global the pandemic. That's the reality. But again, as I've said again and again before, there has to be a better way to present Bidenomics to the American public.
But it's not. But Johanna, it's not just about presenting Bidenomics. It's not. What it is you have to have real conversations about it. And in terms of what's really there. For instance, here's a CBS News YouGov poll. Okay, Trump statement: immigrants illegally entering poison the blood of the country. Republican primary voters, 81%. Agree with him. 19% disagree with him. Okay? That's one piece of that poll. Ron Brownstein had this same thing. 3/4 of Republicans say growing number of immigrants threaten traditional American values. Go back to my iPad. About the same percent, listen to me, but the same percent say whites face as much bias as minorities. 9 in 10 say Christianity is under assault in the U.S. This is GOP's modern glue. Now, here's the point, and this is the problem. You don't have enough white anchors like Stephanie Rule addressing the issue. I can tell you right now, a black network anchor would not have me on the show for my book because the white producers on the show didn't like the title. Even though in the book, I talk about white folks in media not wanting to talk about white fear. So what you have here is you have white people, Republicans, Democrats, liberals, conservatives, progressives, who do not want to have real conversations, that their white fear is a huge part of the conversation. It's cloaked in economic anxiety.
Absolutely. I agree. All those things you said are indeed true. And I think a lot of things can be true at the same time, because the reality is that, and when we look at the numbers in terms of who's going to be minority in this country, it's going to be white folks, right? And there's an increased fear because when you are the dominant race, you get to control the different facet of the society. And now you're the minority. It's creating some level of anxiety, and you will do whatever it takes to maintain dominance so that you can remain in control. That is just a reality. But Mr. Trump's comment about immigrants poisoning this society is one that is incredibly offensive, because as we know, immigrants have helped build this country.
But Johanna, you got a lot of immigrants who support Trump.
You are absolutely,
because you know why? Here's what a lot of them are thinking. I got here. He talking about them.
Yeah, and it's rather unfortunate. These are things that we have to think about. Mr. Trump talking about deporting folks in mass numbers, and I think the immigrant community should be very concerned and should be very alert, and they should be paying attention, because that means your child who has your cousin, your sister who has temporary protected status, which is a status that is given to those that are from countries that are dealing with natural disasters and wars. You could be at any given time, you could be deported, because as we know, TPS is not a permanent status. It's just something that's provided by a stroke of a pen by the Department of Homeland Security and the President of the United States. And there are hundreds and thousands of TPS and even DACA recipients. And we saw under the leadership of Speaker Pelosi, legislation was introduced to ensure that there is a pathway to citizenship for those individuals, and it never materialized. So the immigrant community should be gravely concerned about those comments.
Here's the again, Mustafa, white journalists, white anchors, white hosts do not want to talk about racism among white voters and how their white identity politics is a part of this whole deal. That's just the reality. They don't want to talk about it.
They don't. But I mean, you're the expert in the space. We know that there's also the messaging that comes from the owners of the networks and from the producers and, everyone who's making those decisions also above those individuals. So I want to make sure that we, spread the truth out to all the different dynamics that are going on in that space. But they're also doing a disservice when you don't tell it just like it actually is and bring the fullness of the conversation forward so that folks across our country can make informed decisions. It's almost like the book burning or the books that are being banned, I should say, in Florida and other locations, because folks don't want individuals to have all the information to actually use these brains that we have inside of our heads. So journalists, reporters have a responsibility to do it, but we also have to put pressure on those individuals who are above them, who are making the decisions.
All right, folks, hold tight 1 second. We're going to talk about the new attack by the Republicans. Oh my God, DEI is going to cause airplanes to start falling out the sky. Y'all are so damn weak and so tired. We're going to discuss that next. Also, Nimrata Haley, she said America has never been racist. But about 15 seconds later, she said, I dealt with racism when I was a kid. Do we need to enroll her into the concussion protocol program? You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us.
We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it.
This is about covering us.
Invest in black-owned media.
Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks.
We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Your money makes this possible.
Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is roland@rolandsmartin.com.
I'm Dee Barnes, and next on The Frequency, we're talking about the rise in great Black literature and the authors who are writing it. Joining me will be professor and author Donna Hill, discuss her writing journey and becoming a best-selling author.
I always was writing, but I never saw anybody that looked like me in the books that I was reading.
Plus, her work with the Center for Black Literature and next year's National Black Writers Conference. That's right here on The Frequency on the Black Star Network.
What's up, everybody? It's your girl, Latasha from the A.
And you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
All right, folks, over the last couple of weeks, we've had to deal with just more and more how shall I put it? Stuck on stupid people. Now, remember, Republicans started a couple of years ago with the attacks on critical race theory. So now their new boogeyman is DSI. You got folks like white billionaire Bill Ackman trashing Harvard president Dr. Claudine Gay, forcing her out, saying she was an affirmative action hire. Oh my God, DEA is so horrible, it's so terrible, it's destroying the country. Oh my goodness. So now their new one is how, oh my God, DEI means black people are gonna be hired and Latinos and Asian, and they can't do the job and they're not smart enough, and it's gonna cause planes to start falling out the skies. It's like Elon Musk endorsed a tweet that suggested that black students at HBCUs have lower IQs, and they shouldn't become pilots. Read this tweet. It will take an airplane crashing and killing hundreds of people for them to change this crazy policy of DIE. This was Musk's response to a post arguing that IQ averages were lower at HBCUs and lower than the average IQ of U.S. Air Force pilots. 10 HBCUs have aviation programs, including Delaware State University. Dr. Tony Allen, the university president, responded to Musk's comments in quite a lengthy letter. He joins us right now. Doc, glad to have you here on Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Hey, Brother Martin, how are you, sir?
What again, and I discussed it last segment, and I laid it out in my book, White Fear, that these things were going to happen. That what you're seeing is, it's anger. It's how dare non-white people start getting jobs. This is all about they're taking our jobs. Those jobs are meant for us. And literally, they're saying, oh, we're going to see just planes falling out of the sky when there's not been a fatality in the American airline industry since 2009.
Look, it's a ridiculous argument. It was hard for me to even respond to that kind of nonsense, but I felt it was my job to do so for my 110 aviation students and 43 more aviation management students. We've been in this business really since the Tuskegee Airmen. You'll know that there were 6 HBCUs that were developing black pilots during World War II, and they all eventually came to Tuskegee Institute at the time, and were war heroes as a result. In Delaware State, we restarted our program in 1987. And now have an aircraft fleet of 26 and exceptional aviation students, all of which have to pass industry standards. It's not about just graduating Delaware State. It's about what the Federal Aviation Administration dictates that are those standards. And we do that in a way that I think is the best in the country. We're the high-quality, low-cost provider east of the Mississippi, and we graduate more pilots of color than any other program in the country.
Let's also be clear.
Yeah.
There are a bunch of people with high IQs who are dumb as hell. I mean, what I mean by that is this. Oh my God, you've got to have a high IQ. That's in order to be a pilot. It's a lot of stuff that you actually have to do to qualify to be a pilot. It's not just can I pass a written test.
Well, you got to fly. That's one thing. You got to have a lot of hours to fly. And I might add that the IQ test is no test of cognitive ability. That's been disproven anyway. So I don't have to talk about the nature of tests and the biases that are in them, generally speaking. What I can tell you is we have high-quality students across all of our disciplines at Delaware State University. And we take the opportunity to open doors for those students who might otherwise have been underserved in the K-12 system. What we are is the melting pot of America. And I think that's exactly what we have stood for 132 years and what HBCUs have stood for 186 years. Remember, we are the primary driver for black folks entering the black middle class. We represent about $16 billion in economic impact across the American economy, all of our HBCUs. And those graduates represent about $1.7 trillion in buying power. So if we're trying to make an economic argument, there is no question that we do more with less. We've been doing it for a long time, and now we're saying that less is no longer acceptable.
In fact, so look, my buddy Armstrong Williams, he posted this on Twitter. He goes, just unbelievable. The CEO of United Airlines says that they use racial quotas when hiring because who needs to hire only qualified people when dealing with planes carrying hundreds of people, thousands of feet in the air, where one misstep can kill them all. DEI is going to cause a mass tragedy. I pray it doesn't. And so he posted this video. I guess it was an interview with the United CEO who was on Axios show. I'm gonna try to pull it up here. And this is the thing that they do. And the reason I find this constantly, to me, to be just stunningly stupid is because you know and I know. We have seen some mediocre white people being hired over the years. And whenever we talk about qualified, that word is only used when it's in relation to us, the qualifier qualified. It's never, like, you don't hear it being used anywhere else. And this is the thing that I'm always trying to get people to understand, what is going on. And so I want to play this clip first, and then I want to come back to you.
Diversity targets working into the Aviate Academy?
We have committed that 50% of the classes will be women or people of color. Today, only 19% of our pilots at United Airlines are women or people of color. And by the way, from all the data I've seen, that's the highest of any airline in the country.
White males don't just dominate in the cockpits, also in the C-suite at United Airlines.
Well, look, at United, I'm proud of the diversity that we actually have in our C-suite. I think if you look around corporate America.
Correct me if I'm saying, though, so this was just based off your website, the people you list as executives, but out of 11 people, 3 are women. I believe 1 is a person of color.
That's correct. But, in corporate America, I think,
That's a low bar. How do you raise your own bar?
Well, a lot of this is, focusing on it. We have programs one of the things we do is for every job when we're doing an interview, we require women and people of color to be involved in the interview process, bringing people in early in their careers as well, and giving them those opportunities and creating a stronger.
The CEO of United Airlines says that they use racial quotas when hiring, because who needs to hire only qualified people when dealing with planes carrying hundreds of people, thousands of feet in the air, where one misstep can kill them all? DEI is going to cause a mass tragedy in the air and on land. I pray it never happens. I'm Armstrong Williams.
Right, so that's all the hyperbole. Here's what Armstrong skipped over and what the rest of these people skip over. The man said 19% of our pilots are women and people of color. That means 81% are white. Okay, why are 81% of the pilots white? I wouldn't be surprised if 10 years ago it was 90% of the pilots are white. Oh.
And Brother Martin.
Oh, could it be we were frozen out of the industry?
Brother Martin, and that's almost every industry in the country, one. And then two, remember, programs like this, particularly in the aviation industry, are about the pilot shortage. There is literally a pilot shortage across the industry. So if you don't look for talent across a wide spectrum of folks, you won't have enough pilots to fly. So why not go to those quality programs, whether they be at HBCUs or other institutions, and get the best and the brightest? And we just happen to think that we have the best and the brightest among a significant population of our peers. So
and to back up what you're saying, this is a 2022 article from NPR. A pilot shortage might be why you're facing flight delays and cancellations. NPR's Ari Shapiro talked with the president of the Southwest Airlines Pilot Association about why there's a shrinking number of pilots. And so that's happening. So what's also happening in America? Guess what? Baby boomers are retiring. Well, guess what? My parents are baby boomers. They were locked out of opportunities. Other black baby boomers were locked out. So what are you now facing? You're now facing a plethora of industries that have been nearly all white. And you know what? You got to replace them with somebody. And white people are not having babies. And so guess what? White America's population is decreasing. So numbers just don't lie. And so these people are just going nuts about, oh my God, this is going to end the world. Guess what? The growth in America are black and brown people. Accept it.
And look, really, when you think about DE&I programs, which I'm strongly in favor of, all of those programs have significant requirements for interviews, for internships, for ultimate employment. And it's really about opening up the pipeline that was restricted for hundreds of years to our people. So this idea that you only have to focus in one area or in one group of people is asinine, antiquated, and a part of ongoing racial tropes that happen in our country. So guess what? If I didn't have folks from the airline industry coming to Dell State, when I have a quality aviation program with 26 aircraft, I wouldn't be doing my job. And guess who else would be doing those jobs? Those aviation companies. So I think we are right on par with what we need to be doing. We need to be doing more of it, quite frankly.
Yeah, and guess why you have DEI programs? It's because white people were only interviewing and hiring white people. The reason there's a Rooney Rule in the NFL because the white owners wouldn't even interview black candidates. And then when they did, they were sham interviews. And so right now, all around America, in corporate America, you got white people who hired their buddies, who hired their friends, who hired their church members, and black people were not in those spaces, and we couldn't even get a shot at any of those jobs. So now saying, yes, you must interview a person of color, you must have a diverse slate of people who you interview for jobs, those things are important because white folks showed they couldn't do it on their own.
Well, look, I talked to a lot of C-suite executives, many of whom say they want to hire more people of color, particularly black folks. And often they say, Tony, I'm having a very hard time finding them. My common retort is, you're simply not looking hard.
Right, and you're sitting here going, really? First,
I mean, look, what did Chris HBCUs graduating 325,000 college graduates every year. Every year. That's just the HBCU community. I'm not talking about the Divine Nine, the Association of Black Professionals across every industry, and the track record. The fact is that those folks who graduate from HBCUs not only represent significant proportions of many disciplines, doctors, lawyers, STEM professionals, members of Congress, et cetera, they have this notion of public service with them. So this notion that you're not only getting a great professional, you're also getting somebody committed to their community and their people, which is good not only for our communities, but good for the country.
Simple as that. And so, listen, my whole deal is this here. This is what I say to African Americans. Let's not, when we're getting attacked, let's not get caught up in this whole BS of, oh, I'm going to have to prove to these white critics that I belong here. No, you belong. What we must do is expose their bigotry, their racism, and their refusal to accept the reality that this country is moving closer to not being a white country. This nation was built on whiteness. This nation was driven by whiteness. And what we're dealing with are a group of people who literally cannot handle the fact that no longer do we live in a world where white is right. They now have to compete.
And look, we'll be there seeding the pond in every industry that matters in this country.
Doc, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
All right, Brother Martin, take care.
Take care, folks. When we come back, Nimrata Haley says America has never been racist. Even though her whole history is littered with racism. Oh, I got to have some fun when we come back. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
I'm Faraji Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
business or career with Grow with Google's wide range of online courses, digital training, and tools. Gain in-demand job skills with flexible online training programs designed to put you on the fast track to jobs in high-growth fields. No experience is necessary. Learn at your own pace. Complete the online certificate program on your own terms. Stand out to employers, get on a path to in-demand jobs, and connect with top employers who are currently hiring. Take one professional career certificate program or all 6. Earn a Google Career Certificate to prepare for a job in a high-growth field like data analytics, project management, UX design, cybersecurity, and more. All professional career certificate programs must be completed by December 31st, 2024. Scan the QR code to complete the application. There are 1,000 scholarships available. Grow with Google and J. Hood and Associates. Be job ready and qualify for in-demand jobs.
On a next, A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie, we talk about a hard, cold fact. Not all healthcare is created equal in this country, especially if you're a person of color.
So many of us, Black families, we rely upon each other heavily. A lot of us aren't necessarily sure how to best communicate with our healthcare providers.
How to take charge and balance the scales. Your life may depend on it. That's next on A Balanced Life on Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Jo Marie Payton, voice of Sugar Mama on Disney's Louder and Prouder Disney Plus, and I'm with Roland Martin on Unfiltered.
There's nothing more interesting than watching Republicans do this cute little dance denying the reality of the racist history of the United States. Vivek Ramaswamy. I mean, he spoke against racism and he was like, that stuff don't exist, until he took his ass to Iowa, where the white folks in Iowa were like, yeah, we ain't really interested in voting for this dude because he reminds us of the 9/11 people. They basically were like, man, that dark skin, I don't know. And see, I dare say the only reason Nikki Haley has fared better than Vivek is because she looked white. His problem is he looked black. And they like, damn, you about as dark as Obama. So Nikki, now going from one white state, Iowa, to the next snow white state, New Hampshire, was doing an interview on the network that more white folks love than anything else, Fox News. And this so-called smart woman, who's an Indian American, said this.
Are you a racist party? Are you involved in a racist party?
No. We're not a racist country, Brian. We've never been a racist country. Our goal is to make sure that today is better than yesterday. Are we perfect? No. But our goal is to always make sure we try and be more perfect every day that we can. I know I faced racism when I was growing up, but I can tell you today is a lot better than it was then. Our goal is to lift up everybody, not go and divide people on race or gender or party or anything else. We've had enough of that in America. That's why I'm so passionate about doing this. I don't want my kids growing up where they're sitting there thinking that they're disadvantaged because of a color or a gender. I want them to know that if they work hard, they can do and be anything they want to be in America.
Run that back.
Party? Are you involved in a racist party?
No. We're not a racist country, Brian. We've never been a racist country. Our goal is to make sure that...
Stop. Now, Nikki just said, we've never been a racist country. Give me 1 second. I want y'all to leave my microphone up. Okay? Now, play.
Today is better than yesterday. Are we perfect? No. But our goal is to always make sure we try and be more perfect every day that we can. I know I faced racism when I was growing up.
Stop. Nikki Haley said, "We've never been a racist country." 10 seconds later, Nimrata said, "I faced racism growing up." So, Nikki, if you faced racism growing up and America's never been a racist country, then did that happen in India, where your mom and daddy came from? Was it in Pakistan? Was that in North America, South America? Was it in Canada? I'm confused. Now, the reason that's hilarious is because how can you let it come out? You just got done getting your ass whooped on the slavery issue. How in the world can somebody actually say America has never been a racist country when we literally partition black people as 3/5 humans in the U.S. Constitution? How could anybody allow to come out of their mouth that we've never been a racist country when for 248 years black people were enslaved? How can anybody suggest that we've never been a racist country when there was the election in 1876, then you had the Great Compromise in 1877, which ushered in 92 years of Jim Crow, and we saw in this country this happen frequently all across the country. We saw 4,000 plus people. We can't even account for all of the people who have been lynched in this country. You had individuals burned who were tortured in the United States of America. We had individuals who were, this is a barbecue. We had Americans who literally went to lynchings like it was a picnic in this country. We saw individuals who, but because they either spoke to a white woman or because they actually owned a black business. We saw Tulsa in 1921, the race massacre. We saw Rosewood. We saw Red Summer coming out of Chicago. We literally saw in this country numerous race wars happening all across this country, and it was race wars. They lynched men. They lynched women. They lynched children. We saw what happened after Nat Turner. That is the country that we're living in. We sit there and we still have people today who actually were fire hosed, dogs sicked on them, trying to actually go vote. Black people who were viciously beaten. Nimrata, what do you call this other than racism? This is video from Bloody Sunday. Absolutely racist, fire cannons, folks who were beaten, John Lewis and others, beaten to an inch of their lives because they were black people who simply wanted to exercise the right to vote. You had a United States military, Nimrata, that until 1948 segregated troops in its military. There were race wars in depots where you had white soldiers and black soldiers. Nimrata, you are so dumb. What Ethan McCaley makes clear in his book on the Chicago Defender. Well, the United States government wanted to try black newspaper owners with treason because they were writing stories about racism in the United States military. One of the racist presidents we've ever had was Woodrow Wilson, who 2 blocks from this office on Black Lives Matter Plaza showed the birth of a nation. This man abandoned the hiring of black people in the federal government. You had Herbert Hoover, who was president of the United States, who was the head of the lily white faction of the Republican Party. You cannot sit here and say America was never racist. You had, of course, racism in education, racism in the military, racism in corporate America, racism in every facet of this industry. When Jesse Owens won 4 gold medals at the 1936 Olympics in Berlin, not only did Hitler not shake his hand, FDR did not shake his hand when he came back to the United States. And he was forced to walk through the kitchen at an awards dinner in New York City, what was there to celebrate him winning 4 gold medals. You cannot tell me that, oh my God, America has never been a racist country. When Jackie Robinson dealt with racial hatred just for playing baseball, when Hank Aaron got thousands of racist letters and death threats because he was on the verge of breaking the record of Babe Ruth. You can't call this country racist. When black people will get in swimming pools, and in order to get them out, white racist individuals will pour acid in the swimming pool in order to force them out. Literally, Nimrata, that's the history. But you know what? You should know, because you said you faced racism as a kid, but you didn't just face racism. Your mama and your daddy faced racism. Michael Harriot put out these tweets where he laid out in a thread the racism and the history of Nikki Haley. He laid out, y'all want to hear the true story of Nikki Haley? He then said in the 1920s, a nativist white nationalist movement began to rise in America. It was anti-immigrant racist, and it gave rise to what we now call the second wave of the Ku Klux Klan. What was it called? He said it's estimated that 1 in 7 white men were card-carrying members of the Klan during this movement. This is when Donald Trump's father was arrested at a Klan rally. One of the hallmark pieces of legislation during this white nationalist trend was the national origins formula. Please go to the next tweet. He lays out 1921, Congress came up with a law that limited how many people could immigrate to the U.S. from each country. That's called racism, Nikki. White Anglo-Saxon countries could come, but Eastern Europeans and other non-white countries had specific limits. In 1923, Bhagat Singh Thind from Amritsar, Punjab, India, filed a Supreme Court case arguing that the immigration quotas shouldn't apply to Asian Indians because they were literally Caucasian. Uh-oh, really? The Supreme Court agreed, saying, yeah, you're Caucasians, but you ain't white. Next. That precedent stood until 1965, when LBJ signed the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965. Why did he do it? Because black people fought for civil rights. Because of desegregation and other civil rights laws, Republicans fled the GOP. One of these laws' fiercest opponents was the Daughters of the Confederacy. This is when they began putting up Confederate monuments. In 1961, South Carolina affixed a Confederate flag to its courthouse. One of the interesting results of this white supremacist backlash was the Segregation Academy. Rather than attend integrated schools, white parents created private, all-white schools all over the South. Most of these schools still exist, although they rarely speak of their origin story. Now, I don't want y'all to think that the civil rights struggle was over. For instance, an incident considered the bloodiest event of the civil rights era happened in February 1968 when cops opened fire on black students at South Carolina State. Most were shot in the back. A few months later, in 1969, Ajit Singh Randhawa and his wife, Raj Kaur Randhawa, took advantage of a new immigration law and immigrated to the U.S. from Amritsar district, Punjab, India. 3 years later, their daughter, Nimrata Randhawa, was born. Next, Nimrata's father taught at Voorhees, an HBCU in Denmark, South Carolina, and lived in neighboring Bamberg. Her mom taught in the public schools. At one time, my family owned the only restaurant in Denmark, so I spent a lot of time there and at Voorhees, the local HBCU. They are black as fuck. But Nimrata would never. So Nimrata enrolled at nearby Orangeburg preparatory schools, a collection of actual segregation academies, and became Nikki. Why? Because she's Caucasian, even if she isn't white. Now, here's where it gets crazy. When Nimrata became governor of South Carolina, she refused to take down the Confederate flag. She said the white supremacist banner was a symbol of heritage and history. It is possible that Nimrata believed this. See, she went to a racist school. She was Caucasian. She rejected inclusion. It's quite possible that Numrata never knew that flag was the Confederate battle flag of Virginia. Numrata was too dumb to know it, had never spent a nanosecond in South Carolina until a century after the Civil War. But when she became a state legislator, black people told her that it stood for white supremacy. She wouldn't take it down. They boycotted. She wouldn't take it down. When she became governor, she was told that it represented a failed war. Numrata refused. On June 17th, the white supremacist terrorists, beckoned by the flag Numrata supported, walked into Emmanuel AME Church and slaughtered 9 black people as they prayed. Bottom line is this here, people. Numrata is so desperate to appeal to white Republicans that she will deny reality with it slapping her in her face. Michael Harriet with The Root joins us right now. Michael, not only did her daddy, let's be clear, he couldn't get a job anywhere else except at HBCU, Michael. Her mama also was a dressmaker, and her mama could not even get paid by white folks, so black folks bought her stuff. This woman literally, her family earned a living because of black people, and she goes, there was no racism in America. What are you talking about?
Right, and we have to understand, like, the history of Nikki Haley. She got where she is because of the work and the resistance of black people. Not only just because of the dress shop that her mom owned, but remember, her mother's first job was teaching at a majority black school district in Bamberg County schools, right? And Nikki even says in her autobiography that with the first house that they rented, they couldn't live in a white neighborhood, so they rented a house, and the person told her, we will rent it to you on one condition. You can never allow black people to come into your house. You can never entertain them in your house. So that's how they got someplace to live. So she knows the history of race in this country. Her school was a segregation academy. She didn't have a single black person in her school the year she graduated. It was formed because of Brown versus Board of
Michael, hold on, Michael, when did she graduate?
She graduated in 1989. The Confederate flag was still flying over her school when she graduated.
She graduated in 1989, y'all. I graduated high school in 1987. This woman is a fraud, Michael. She is the worst kind of fraud. She literally is Stephen from Django. She will say whatever has to be said in order to appeal to white conservatives in the Republican Party.
Right. That's what she's always been doing, because, you know, one question no one ever asks about Nikki Haley, because she takes credit for taking that flag or removing that flag from South Carolina State House, even though she did, right? The legislature did that. But if we were critical thinkers, right, we would ask, well, if you had the power to remove that flag in 2015, and we're going to give you all the credit for removing it, that also means that you chose to leave it up from 2011 when you were elected to 2015 when a white supremacist walked into a church and slaughtered 9 people. For those 4 years, you thought it was perfectly fine, even though, according to you, you knew what the cause of the Civil War was. You knew it was because of slavery. You knew what that flag represented. You were a Civil War buff, as you claim, right? So you knew what it stood for. You knew what it meant. You knew it was a white supremacist symbol, and you chose to leave it up because, according to you, you had the power to take it down because you said you did, right? So those first 4 years, you just left it up because you didn't care about black people.
And she's saying these things when literally her fellow Indian American, I mean, when she's sitting here, she's watching what's happened to Vivek, what's happened to him, and literally white folks in Iowa, yeah, I mean, I ain't really trying to vote for this dude because he remind me of them 9/11 people. What the hell you call that? And then this whole deal, and not only that, I want there to be a key word. I want y'all to understand a key word, a key phrase that she used. Play it again and listen for something. I'm going to point it out to y'all.
Are you a racist party? Are you involved in a racist party?
No. We're not a racist country, Brian. We've never been a racist country. Our goal is to make sure that today is better than yesterday. Are we perfect? No. But our goal is to always make sure we try and be more perfect every day.
Okay, are we perfect? No. That means that you got some baggage in your closet. That means you got some stuff you don't want nobody to know. Oh, we're striving to get better. We're striving. It's like she like her brain is saying, ain't no way in the world I can even acknowledge American history. Here's what's so crazy, Michael. Hell, even the biggest racists will acknowledge American racism.
Right. Especially somebody from South Carolina. But if you notice, there's something else in that clip. There's something else that you might notice in that clip, right? He didn't ask her if America was a racist country. He asked her if she was a part of a racist party. Boom. And she never addressed that part, right? She skipped right to a racist country, right? She didn't even want to address the GOP's racism. She went right to country, right? She went right to that old Tim Scott, that old, trope of, America is not a racist country, because she didn't want to address the reality of today. Like, she went back to the past because she didn't want to address it today. And if you notice, Nikki Haley's whole career, she became a celebrated person in our party by touting that, hey, if you vote for me, we can show that we are a diverse party. So she talks about race when she wants to, when it's advantageous for her. But when she wants to skip over the question and go from party to country, she can do that because she knows the truth. She was raised in a state that is 27% black. Her entire administration had one single black person in it. One single black person in a state that is 27% black. And the only way you can do that, right, is specifically exclude black people. You have to look for white people, right?
It's hard to skip over black people in South Carolina.
Right. Especially educated black people, because South Carolina citizens, or the black citizens, are disproportionately higher educated. And you got to think about, right, like if you go back to the segment that you just had, right, about diversity in the airline industry, it's always curious to me how these people are never asked to explain how they manage to create these white structures that are so lily white when there are black people right in front of their faces, right? Like, she didn't even choose she didn't even allow the person in charge of the South Carolina archives. She didn't even put a black person in charge of that, when 40% of the black people in America, their ancestry comes through South Carolina. And I know that because my aunt created the organization. Before my aunt created it in the 1990s, there was not an organization to preserve black history in the state where black history, where America's black history comes from. And she skipped over all of those qualified black people to specifically search for white people who aligned with her racist ideology, so that she wouldn't offend the white people in her party.
And I also want people to know that South Carolina deliberately, I need y'all to listen to what I'm saying, white racists in South Carolina deliberately maneuvered to keep South Carolina out of the Brown versus Board of Education ruling. What I mean by that is they did not want segregated education to end on the basis of a lawsuit in South Carolina. Okay, was one of the original states where Thurgood Marshall went. But they were so focused on that, Michael. They said, we need to maneuver this thing. And so when it was consolidated and Topeka became the lead, South Carolina was like, "Whoo, good. Our name is not going to be on that sucker for history."
Roland, boy, you cooking right now, boy, because you know that's a beef with my family. We've had that family for years. Like literally right now, there's a petition that my family has going around to change the name for the 75th anniversary of Brown versus Board to Briggs versus Elliott. Briggs versus Elliott was alphabetically the first, so if you would have gone by the alphabet, it would have been named after a family, the Briggs family, a black family from South Carolina. If you would have gone chronologically, the South Carolina, that black family, filed the first of the lawsuits that became Brown versus Board of Education. But because they didn't want that decision to be anchored to a state from the South, they just arbitrarily used white supremacy to change the name of the lawsuit. It should really be named Briggs versus Elliott. So yeah, I mean, you bringing up old beefs right now with me, and it's the truth, right? Like, but because people like Nikki Haley want to erase and whitewash history, we never talk about these issues.
And since Nikki, because remember, the initial question that Brian Kilmeade asked her was, is your party racist? Go to my iPad. This right here, y'all, is July 14, 2022. House Republicans all vote against neo-Nazi probe of military police. The same Republicans voted against the resolution from Jamal Bowman after 10 black people were gunned down in Buffalo, calling out white supremacy. This is the exact same Republican Party that, and Donald Trump leading the way, did not want all of those Confederate names taken off of military bases. These are the same people who defend Confederate monuments. So it's amazing to me how she couldn't answer that question when literally her party is the party that's doing all it can to preserve every symbol of white supremacy and domestic terrorists in this country.
Right, exactly. And then when you look at, even when it relates to history and education, right? Like we talk about Ron DeSantis, but South Carolina was the first state to pass what we call those anti-critical race theory laws. They passed the legislation that defined those 7 principles that we now call CRT, right? And that was Nikki Haley's home state. So they have always led the way, even under Nikki Haley, in America's fascination and cementing of white supremacy. And Nikki Haley is part of that legacy. Nikki Haley was part of the legacy before she was governor. She was, as a state legislator, she was part of it as governor, even in the UN, right? And now she's fighting to become part of that legacy as a presidential candidate. But for some reason, right, we think she's a moderate when all of her actions have shown that she is more radical than Donald Trump, because Donald Trump is really about Donald Trump, right? He uses race as a dog whistle to gain power. Nikki Haley knows how to put those policies into actions and to cement white supremacy as a systemic force to suppress and oppress black people. So she's more skilled at that than Donald Trump or even Ron DeSantis.
Absolutely. Folks, Michael Harrod, he is the author of the bestseller Black AF History. Y'all know what that stands for. The Unwhitewashed Story of America. Michael, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot.
Going to a break. We come back. I'll chat with my panel right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. We know about the racist history of America. Back in a moment.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, Dave.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
I'm Faraji Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture. Weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kim Coles.
Hey, I'm Donnie Simpson.
Yo, it's your man Deion Cole from Blackish, and you watch
Roland Martin, Unfiltered.
And all these other things are conditions and problems, and I read you had more than other people have.
I didn't even say that. I said they were different. I'll tell you this. When I left this country in 1948, I left this country for one reason only, one reason. I didn't care where I went. I might have gone to Hong Kong, I might have gone to Timbuktu, I ended up in Paris, on the streets of Paris, with $40 in my pocket on the theory that nothing worse could happen to me there than it already happened to me here. You talk about making it as a writer by yourself. You have to be able then to turn off all the antenna with which you live, because once you turn your back on this society, you may die. You may die. And it's very hard to sit at a typewriter and concentrate on that if you're afraid of the world around you. The years I lived in Paris did one thing for me. They released me from that particular social terror, which was not the paranoia of my own mind, but a real social danger visible in the face of every cop, every boss, everybody.
Everybody, no matter who, no matter what his attitude, is bigoted.
I did not say that.
Well, has an attitude. It's on his face. Is in the way of every boss.
But you're asking me to do something impossible. You're asking me to take the will for the deed. I don't know what most white people in this country feel, but I can only include what they feel from the state of their institutions. I don't know if white Christians hate Negroes or not, but I know that we have a Christian church which is white and a Christian church which is black. I know, as Malcolm X once put it, that the most segregated hour in American life is high noon on Sunday. That says a great deal for me about a Christian nation. It means that I can't afford to trust most white Christians and certainly cannot trust the Christian church. I don't know whether the labor unions and their bosses really hate me. That doesn't matter, but I know I'm not in their unions. I don't know if the real estate lobby is anything against black people, but I know the real estate lobbies keep me in the ghetto. I don't know if the Board of Education hates black people, but I know the textbooks they give my children to read and the schools that we have to go to. Now, this is the evidence. You want me to make an act of faith, risking myself, my wife, my woman, my sister, my children, on some idealism which you assure me exists in America, which I have never seen.
I wonder, Mustafa, if Nimrata has seen that clip.
I hope she has, but if she did, the question would be, would that information find fertile ground or not? You know, I love James Baldwin. I'm a Baldwinite. I remember when he said that if I love you, I have to make you conscious of the things you don't see. I hope people will take that particular quote when they're thinking about Nikki Haley, because you often only see what people want you to see, you know, the pretty words, you know, looking in the appropriate manner. Making sure that when it's Dr. King's birthday that you send out, you know, words of saying how much you support and appreciate his mission, you know, but then they don't take a look and say and ask the question, is there anything that's really different between Donald Trump and Nikki Haley? Is there anything really different between Governor DeSantis and Nikki Haley? Because as much as she might want to clean it up, it still has that same bite of racism. It still has that same anchoring to systemic injustices. So, you know, when Baldwin runs through all those things, you have to ask the question, well, what did Nikki Haley do to change any of those dynamics when she was governor in South Carolina? And if you actually take a look at that record, you will see a record that's not so different than DeSantis, that's not so different than Trump, and it's not so different than a number of folks who say that they want to lead this country. So then you have to ask yourself the question, why wouldn't I vote to make sure that someone who has shown a disregard for my community, why wouldn't I make sure that I vote to stop that from happening?
Larry, I doubt Nimrata has actually watched this video clip of Dr. King or any of these Republicans who were putting up their little BS quotes on yesterday.
Yeah. At the very same time that America refused to give the Negro any land, through an act of Congress, our government was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that it was willing to undergird its white peasants from Europe with an economic floor. But not only did they give the land, they built land-grant colleges with government money to teach them how to farm. Not only that, they provided county agents to further their expertise in farming. Not only that, they provided low interest rates in order that they could mechanize their farms. Not only that, today, many of these people are receiving millions of dollars in federal subsidies not to farm, and they are the very people telling the black man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. And this is what we are faced with, and this is the reality. Now, when we come to Washington in this campaign, we are coming to get our check. At the very same time that America...
Larry?
They don't want to talk about that, King. That's too radical. They want to keep it. They want to keep it. They want to keep it PR. Make sure they use the quotes that they like, and they keep repeating over and over again. And so King was unpacking a whole lot there, strictly about land and wealth, right? So a lot of times we don't talk about this in the United States. The largest landowners, and like Ted Turner and some of these other rich white men who own all this land. The other thing is, rolling really quickly, talk about the land grant schools. We could talk about what happened after that, 1890 schools, HBCUs that were passed after that. But the bottom line is, when we talk about wealth, and we connect it to Nikki Haley, who was governor of the first state to secede from the nation where the first shots of the Civil War were shot, and Sumter South at Fort Sumter, she understands what's going on here. But Roland, what's dangerous about people like Nikki Haley, she's part of a long line of people from minoritized backgrounds who will do whatever they need to do to sell their souls. We could talk about Jindal, Louisiana. We could talk about the current lieutenant governor in North Carolina, who will likely be the Republican nominee. We have to be very aware of those people that knock at the door and you open it, and they seem to have a shared experience, but when you turn your back, they will stab you in your back. Lastly, the thing that relates to Baldwin, I want people to go back and watch his debate with Buckley at Cambridge University in 1965, because many of the things in which Baldwin talked about, he continued to unpack in this debate against what America considered to be this conservative icon. So Nikki Haley is a fraud, and once again, she's one of those individuals in minoritized communities that you have to don't turn your back because you find yourself in trouble.
And look, Johanna, we also just can't ignore the reality of how this country and its colonialism, in terms of how we treated other countries. We can't ignore the reality of the Berlin Conference and how African nations were split up and plundered for their resources. Let's not talk about Nikki Haley. She don't want to deal with, again, this is a new book by Stuart Reed. It's called The Lumumba Plot, The Secret History of the CIA and a Cold War Assassination, how the role the United States played in the assassination, the murder of Patrice Lumumba just 2 months after the folks, the Congo, got their independence from one of the most vicious racists in the history of this world, King Leopold. We could talk about other nations as well. Bottom line is, you cannot ignore American history, and this is why I need everybody understanding why folks have to exercise their right to vote, because Donald Trump and this Republican Party, they absolutely believe in banning books, banning speech. They do not want the next generation of white students learning the real story of this country. And I keep saying to people, what scared white America to death were all of those young white kids out there supporting Black Lives Matter, protesting in the wake of George Floyd's death. And what you're seeing right now from the likes of Bill Ackman and Elon Musk and Nikki Haley and the Republican Party are white folks in this country who are deathly afraid of young white people knowing the real story of America.
You know, Roland, it is rather unfortunate because I think that Nikki Haley had an opportunity to really unite the country and to right some of the wrongs that she has done as former governor in the state of South Carolina. But the reality is that with Nikki Haley, one of my biggest issues with her is that she wants to be everything to everyone. So she speaks on both sides of her mouth. And therefore, she does not take a bold stance on many issues. And unfortunately, it has worked for her, right? She was a state legislator, she became governor, and she became the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations. And now she is fighting to become the next president of these United States. And when you look at her in comparison to her other candidates, not to say any one of them are better than her, but at least you know where they stand, right? You know their posture on many issues, including race issues, and they're very radical and very bold. Whereas with Nikki Haley, she says the right things depending on the audience and who's she's around. And it's not. And it's very common, unfortunately, with, and I'll say this as an immigrant in this country who wasn't born here. And I always tell everyone, I owe my success to African Americans, but for the struggles of African Americans and the civil rights movement, me, my family, we wouldn't be in this country. I wouldn't have enjoyed the opportunities that I have enjoyed today. It was my professors at historically Black colleges who nurtured me, who helped me to become the person that I am today. When I went to law school, my professors, a Black law professor, held my hand and made sure that I was able to pass my exams and successfully graduate. So a lot of times, I think as immigrants, we don't think about the plight of African Americans. And when we get in certain positions of power, we don't advocate for our brothers and sisters enough. And I would like to take this opportunity to call on, immigrants in this country to understand that it is important for us to unite with African Americans because but for their struggles and their continued struggles today, because whenever African Americans win a victory, whatever the issue may be, we benefit from it as immigrants. We must unite. And if we're going to win this war, and if we're going to make any kind of progress in this country, regardless of where you're from, whether you're from the African continent, the Caribbean, or anywhere else, we must unite to fight the system so that we can gain economic power and social justice in this country.
Well, I found one more doozy from Nikki that I had to go ahead and play. And so if y'all want to listen to this tongue twister, check this one out.
We were the only Indian family in our small southern town. I was teased every day for being brown. So anyone that wants to question it can go back and look at what I've said on how hard it was to grow up in the Deep South as a brown girl. Anybody can look at my record and see when Walter Scott was shot down by a dirty cop, how I made sure that the Walter Scott family didn't suffer because we put the first body camera bill in the country in place. Anybody can look at the fact that when we had 9 amazing souls die in Mother Emanuel Church, I did something that no Republican or Democrat ever wanted to touch, which was call for the Confederate flag to come down because it would take 2/3 of the House and Senate and was an impossible feat. I don't know what you're implying with that, but what I will tell you is saying that I had Black friends is a source of pride. Saying that I had white friends is a source of pride. If you want to know what it was like growing up, I was disqualified from a beauty pageant because I wasn't white or Black, because they didn't know where to put me. So look, I know the hardships, the pain that come with racism. It's the reason that I fight bullies every day when it comes to racism, anti-Semitism, or hate, and I always will. If I didn't mention slavery on that day, it's because that's an automatic. There's always been, the Civil War's always been known about slavery. I misread it and thought he was looking for a bigger answer going forward. So critics can say whatever they want. I'm very comfortable in my skin. I'm very comfortable with what I believe in, and my job is not to convince them.
And that, Mustafa, was a answer that she gave before that interview on Fox News.
There you go.
Yeah, that right there shows why you cannot listen and support Nikki Haley, because she will flip-flop as fast as you can flip a pancake.
It's very disingenuous, and you know, she's got a problem moving forward because people are going to continue to bring forward the clips that show who she truly is, and you know, and these different types of dynamics that she gets herself into, where she says one thing in one setting and in another setting she wants to say something different and play to all audiences. And, you know, you can't do that. People really need to know who you are and how, you know, what you stand on. And she has a very difficult time in doing that.
Well, to me, it is quite hilarious to have to listen to her give an answer to anything, because my Lord, she will sit here and switch a position in a heartbeat, and then all of a sudden, matter of fact, I think that was a debate. I think it was even one of the town halls where Nikki, I mean, bruh, she literally denied saying something when they like, but you said it. We got the video. And she was, no, I didn't say that. They said, Nikki, we got the video. Like, we got the video of your ass saying it. She will, and that's when you know you're desperate. When an individual, and here's the deal, she and Vivette are the same. They will, you can play the video and they like, that wasn't me. That wasn't me. And you can go, no, Nikki, that's the video of you right there. No, that wasn't me. Y'all can't say, I ain't say that. And it's sitting right there. But you know, this shouldn't be a surprise, you know, because frankly, Nikki, she worked for Trump. And she lied as much as Donald Trump did. But Nikki, I'm gonna go ahead and end this ethering of you on this one here, Nikki. So, Nikki, when you say it was no racism in America, this is in Montgomery. This is the memorial to the thousands of people who were lynched in this country. So, Nikki, if you don't think there was racism in America, you really have no business even running for president, because if you can't even understand that basic fact, I don't want your ass anywhere near the Oval Office. Johanna, Larry, Mustafa, I appreciate y'all being on today's show. Thank you so very much. Appreciate it. Thanks a bunch. Folks, that's it for us. I will see y'all tomorrow. Please support us in what we do. Our goal every day is to speak truth and power and be honest about what's going on in this country. We don't sit here and shy from it. We also know that mainstream media, MSNBC, CNN, Fox News, ABC, NBC, CBS, they're not going to confront the stories that we talk about. They're not going to go in depth with it. They're not going to deal with that. And so this is why it's important for us to have Black-owned platforms, because we don't seek permission. We don't have to ask somebody, can we please dedicate 5 minutes to the topics that we do. We choose to go 20, 30, 40, 50 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, have a special production, we'll do that. That's what happens when you own. And so if it wasn't for Black-owned media, if it wasn't for the Black radio stations and newspapers and magazines, we would not be where we are today. And I don't believe in asking somebody, can you please cover our story? T.I. often talks about that we must monetize our culture. Well, I believe when it comes to Black-owned media, we must control the narrative of our culture. And so your support is critical for us to do so. A lot of you watch this show. A lot of you stop me all around the country. People were stopping me today in Indianapolis. Brother, I appreciate your show. Brother, I watch your show. But I want all of y'all to also be supporters of the show because your resources are critically important. I'm telling you right now, I'm dealing with these ad agencies. 90% of all ad agencies are run by white Americans in this country. 90%. And they are not providing the resources to black-owned media that we need. We don't even get close to the same money as MSNBC and Fox, ABC, CBS, TNT, TBS, and all of these networks. They make excuses. I did my Tubi video. You can see all kind of major ads on Tubi's in between some of the most disturbing content, but they'll come and tell me, yeah, Roland, because you talk about politics and you give opinion, you're not brand safe. They literally say not brand safe. I've seen Mercedes sponsor a segment on The 5 on Fox News where they say some of the most vile, despicable things on that show, but they are brand safe. So that's why it's critically important for you to support us. You can send your check and money order to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered. PayPal, R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. And be sure to download the Black Star Network app. Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. And be sure to watch our 24-hour streaming channel. We're available on Amazon News. Go to Amazon Fire, check us out. Tell Alexa to play news from the Black Star Network. Watch us on Plex TV. Check us out with Amazon Freevee, as well as Amazon Prime Video. And be sure to get a copy of my book, White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds. Proceeds from this book go right back into the show. So we appreciate your support. Folks, I will see you tomorrow, right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Holla! Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?